Today is my birthday party. Ethan, however, is crazily tormenting a waiter. Kneel down and apologize to my girlfriend. The girl timidly lowers her head. Just as she is about to kneel, I stop her. Ethan, enough. But Ethan is not satisfied. Kneel down and apologize to my girlfriend, or I'll make sure you can't survive in this city. The girl's face turns pale. I grab Ethan's hand. Ethan, I said, enough. Ethan seems not to hear me. He darkens his face, his eyes fixed on the wobbly girl in front of him. The moment my hand touches him, he directly throws me away. Get lost. Crash. I crash into the champagne tower behind me. The champagne topples over in response. Countless liquids splash onto me. Emily, are you okay? Grace hurriedly takes the towel from the waiter and wipes me down. Ugh, what a mess. It seems Ethan only notices me now. He turns around, looking at me in confusion. Emily. I give him a deep glance and turn to the stage. Friends, thank you all for coming to my birthday party. I reserved a table at the bar downstairs. Tonight, no one gets to leave sober. As I step down from the stage and walk out, Ethan blocks my path. I ignore him and try to walk around. He tries to chase after me, but Grace stops him. Ethan, don't push your luck, deal with your own problems first. Are you okay? Grace catches up to me, worried. Standing at the door, I let out a breath. That's Sophia. Grace responds with a soft I force a smile. It seems it's not just me, Grace has recognized her too. Or rather, most people present have recognized her. After all, Sophia did something significant in our circle back in the day. Once, I saw a question on Jihu: what type of girls do rich second-generation kids like? It was quite amusing. Rich second-generation kids are still human. People have different preferences. Just like Ethan. What he likes is the stubborn, insecure, yet pure type like Sophia. This is Ethan's assessment of Sophia. He says she's pure, so her love for Ethan is untainted. He says she's insecure, so she can never be at ease when with Ethan. He says she's stubborn, so when Ethan's mother hoped they would break up, she turned around and left without hesitation. Sophia dumped Ethan. Ethan pleaded desperately. She didn't look back. Ethan, I beg you not to bother me anymore. I never liked you, I was just lying to you. This was the only thing Sophia said when we brought her to Ethan's bedside. At that time, Ethan had drunk himself into a stomach bleed. It seemed that as long as Sophia didn't appear, he would die. Sophia's words made him see red, and he shouted hoarsely, "Get lost." Then Sophia disappeared from our world. Later, someone told me, Emily, now that Sophia is gone, your chance has come. I scoffed. Am I the kind of person to take advantage of a gap? I admit I like Ethan. But the tragedy with him and Sophia made me hesitate to approach him. After all, we are rich second-generation kids. We always weigh pros and cons. We are refined egoists. Just like now. As soon as Sophia appears, Ethan's years of restraint shatter. So I'm considering whether it's still necessary to continue my engagement with Ethan. Grace is worried about me and insists on coming home with me. I'm helpless. Do you see me as such a weak person? Grace shakes her head repeatedly. What nonsense. I just want to drink your family's wine. Seeing her determined expression, I can only take her home. Later, she drank a bottle of wine worth 120,000. At my place, she sang and danced, even wanting to perform a striptease for me. I was exhausted by her antics and fell asleep. In the end, I had a dreamless night. My biological clock wakes me up on time in the morning. I peeked into the guest room. Grace is sleeping freely and peacefully. Then I saw the familiar car parked downstairs. It's Ethan. I went downstairs, walked to his car, and knocked on the window. Ethan sluggishly turned his head, hesitated for a few seconds when he saw me. Then he softened his gaze and called out to me softly, Emily. Seeing him like this, I knew he hadn't slept all night. I remember one time he worked a night shift at the company. The next morning, he insisted I bring him breakfast. I was overjoyed to see him. I couldn't help but reach out to scratch his chin. How come you've grown a beard after just one night? It looks like weeds. Ethan snorted and wrapped his arms around my waist. While poking me with his stubble, he said, "Proves I have good energy." I couldn't help but laugh. Those vivid memories create a stark contrast to the intangible barriers now. "When did you arrive?" I asked him. He got out of the car and took off his coat, draping it over my shoulders. "It's cold in the morning, why didn't you wear more? Be careful not to catch a cold." He spoke words of concern, and his hands were gentle. I couldn't help but sigh. Ethan paused for a moment. "Emily, I'm sorry. I lost control of my emotions and messed up your birthday party." Saying this, he took out a gift box. "Birthday gift. Let's see if you like it." I hesitated looking at the gift box, unsure whether to accept it. But seeing Ethan's gentle gaze, I took it. I opened it to find a watch inside. A wave of helplessness swept over me. I even found it laughable that I hesitated. I hesitated because I thought the gift box would contain a ring. Ethan was planning to propose to me at my birthday party. This was almost a well-known secret in our circle. After all, it had already leaked that he customized a wedding ring. And I remember that afternoon. When I was dozing off, he quietly took a yarn and looped it around my finger. I squinted, looking at him against the light, watching his tender movements. At that moment, it felt like flowers were blooming in my heart. But now, it seems I was overthinking it. I closed the gift box and said lightly, "Thank you." Ethan frowned, hesitating to speak. "Is there something else? If not, I'm going upstairs." Ethan grabbed my arm. "Are you still mad?" "It was my fault yesterday, I shouldn't have." "Ethan." I interrupted him. "What shouldn't you have said? Think before you speak." Ethan raised his hand, rubbing his temples in frustration. He gets headaches when he doesn't sleep well. I felt a bit soft-hearted. But then I remembered that he felt this way because of someone else, and my interest waned. "All right, go back and rest. We can talk when you're feeling better." But Ethan hugged me tightly. He said helplessly, with your businesslike tone, "How can I dare to leave?" He continued, "It's my fault. Because of her appearance, my emotions got a bit out of control. It won't happen again, I promise." I felt a bit sad, my shoulders drooping. "Ethan, the question I asked you 3 years ago, I'll ask you again. Have you really moved on from Sophia? If you haven't, don't come and bother me." 3 years ago, I failed to seize power in the company and was ousted by my father's illegitimate son. The illegitimate son mocked me, "Your gender is your original sin, you're destined to lose against me." That was a very frustrating time for me. So frustrating that I almost disappeared from the circle. It was Ethan who found me. He said he would help me. "How will you help?" "How about marrying me?" "Not a good idea." I knew he was talking about a marriage of convenience. I also knew it was a good solution. I could use Ethan's family influence to return to the company. Once I got back, there would be many things I could do. But I didn't want to choose Ethan for this marriage. So I told him directly, "I like you, you know that, right? If I marry you, I'd want to develop feelings for you. If that doesn't happen, I'd be very sad, and we would definitely end up divorced. In that case, I might as well find someone else." Yes, someone else. I was eager to try. Ethan helplessly grabbed my arm. "Why do you always jump to conclusions? All right, let's develop feelings together, is that okay?" His words shocked me. I had witnessed how desperately he clung to Sophia. "Have you moved on from Sophia? If you haven't, don't come and bother me." He sighed. "I've moved on, really. Can we develop feelings now? Can you stop adding random things to my drink in the future? Water is fine, but why do you have to add orange juice? Are you afraid others won't notice?" I looked at him in surprise. "You know?" He chuckled in disbelief. "I'm not blind, I have taste buds." At that time, I believed him. I thought feelings would eventually fade, just like mine for him. If he didn't bother me, I would slowly let go of him. But now I was having doubts. If a person can still stir up your intense emotions after 5 years, what kind of feelings do you have for them? Ethan held me tightly. "I was wrong, it won't happen again. Trust me, okay?" This was not the answer I wanted. But it seemed that Ethan could only give me this for now. I pushed him away. All right, go back and rest. Don't you trust me? Ethan's eyes were heavy with concern. I sighed. Ethan, let's not talk about this anymore, okay? We parted unhappily. He was troubled by my distrust. I was upset by his lack of honesty. This is how barriers are formed. What was even more irritating was Lucas's sarcastic remarks toward me. I heard your boyfriend made his ex-girlfriend kneel for you? Wow, he really loves you. I looked at him with disdain. Did the project on West Street get finalized? Do you need my help? Lucas's expression changed. But it was just for a moment. The next second, he scoffed. What's there to be proud of? No matter how capable you are, you're still just working for me. In the end, all of this still belongs to me. Those were not words Lucas would typically say. It was clear that my father gave him unfettered protection. Useless. Lucas's eyes burned with rage. Emily, what's so great about you? Aren't you just climbing up through men? Now that this man isn't reliable either, let's see what you have left. I didn't want to waste more breath on him. Just like I once said, as long as I returned, there would be many things I could do. In the end, it was still uncertain who would come out on top. After work, Ethan waited for me in the underground parking lot. He stood outside the car, spinning a cigarette in his hand, looking a bit lonely. Why didn't you call me? Ethan's hand brushed against my face. I was afraid you wouldn't answer. I opened my mouth, wanting to say we should talk. But what came out instead was, it's not at that stage yet. Ethan seemed to sigh in relief. What do you want for dinner tonight? You decide. Come to my place, I'll cook for you. I nodded in agreement. Ethan rarely cooks but is quite talented at it. But I know his cooking skills were developed for Sophia. Sophia was very poor to the point of only having her dignity left. She didn't want to accept any of Ethan's kindness. Anything Ethan gave her, she would find ways to return. For example, if Ethan took her out to dinner, she would definitely invite him out in return. And that was a heavy burden for her. Ethan seemed particularly troubled when he talked to us about these matters. But most of us feel that Sophia is a bit pretentious. Ethan can see that too. So he said, you guys who have never suffered from financial hardship don't understand. She's poor, so she has to use her dignity as a bottom line, otherwise, she'll fall into an endless decline. At that moment, I thought, Ethan truly loves Sophia. So I said, you have a house near the school, right? If things get tough, you can just buy groceries and cook at home. It's both economical and cozy. I just said that casually. I didn't really think Ethan would do it. A little young master raised with golden spoons probably can't even tell salt from sugar. But he did it, and he did it well. I shook my head with a wry smile. I used to never think about these things or compare myself to others. It seemed pointless. Things that have happened in the past can't just disappear without a trace. If I want to accept Ethan, I must also accept that he has deeply loved someone else before. But now, those memories keep replaying in my mind. It seems I'm not as open-minded as I thought. After dinner, Ethan pulled me to the living room to watch a movie. The sky was getting dark, and I needed to head back soon. I have been dating Ethan for 3 years, but our most intimate contact has only been kissing. We haven't lived together or stayed over at each other's homes. Grace finds it unbelievable. It's the first time I've seen a couple keep their relationship so pure. Come on, who's not up to par? It can't be Ethan, right? I remember he moved in with Sophia after just half a year. Is it that you can't get over it? So she thought it was my problem. But the truth is, Ethan has never brought it up. As a girl, it's not good for me to take the initiative, right? Today, I stood up and said to him, Ethan, can I stay over? Ethan was taken aback. Of course, you can. Go tidy up the guest room. I looked at him and burst into laughter. I was joking. I have a meeting tomorrow, so I'll head back now. I'll give you a ride. No need. Emily. Ethan called me back. What's wrong? He smiled at me. I might be a bit busy later. I'll call you when I'm free. Okay. It would be a lie to say I wasn't disappointed. A man who has been abstinent for 3 years or longer. What's the reason behind it? Is it because the current person isn't suitable? Or is it because the previous person was too unforgettable? Sophia is gone. Recently, I haven't been in contact much with Ethan. He's busy, and I'm busy too. This situation used to be quite normal. But now it feels like we're in a Cold War. Today, my assistant scheduled a meeting at the place where Sophia works. I hadn't planned to look for her. But when I ran into her, I wanted to chat for a bit. So after the meeting, I asked where Sophia was. But the front desk manager said, Sophia has already left the company. When did that happen? I asked, frowning. The front desk manager checked and told me the date. It was just 2 days after my birthday party. She left in quite a hurry, something must have happened. She didn't even take her salary for this month. What a coincidence. I never believe that there are so many coincidences in this world. The simplest way is to ask Ethan. But once a rift has formed, it's not so easy to heal. So I made a call. Help me look up a person named Sophia, 28 years old this year. After a pause, I added, check her connection to Ethan. Many people have noticed the unusual atmosphere between me and Ethan, like my dad. He rarely calls me, come back for dinner with Ethan tonight. I'm not free. Are you not free, or is Ethan not free? I didn't answer. He said, give your brother the projects you have with Germany. I lowered my voice. This is a project I've been working on for a year and a half. Your brother needs results. He needs results to gain the board's recognition. He can't handle it. I said. He can handle it now. My dad's tone was indifferent, as if he were talking about something trivial. Emily, don't make me angry. I remained silent for a long time and finally gritted my teeth, saying, I understand. After hanging up, my expression returned to normal. The fish has taken the bait. Lucas is useless. He wants to snatch everything without considering whether he can handle it. But having the project taken from me, I have to do something. So I instructed my assistant and lay down at home to slack off. In the afternoon, Grace called me. I thought she wanted to invite me out to have fun. Instead, she said, I saw Ethan at the hospital, in the oncology department. Okay, I got it. Are you not coming to see him? Should I find out more inside? You don't need to worry, I'll handle it. Later, the investigation results came through. My heart sank. Sophia's hometown is very remote. After breaking up with Ethan, she returned to her hometown. All these years, apart from the time we forced her to meet Ethan, she hasn't shown up even once. And now, the reason she came back is that her mother has cancer. The medical conditions are better here, and she can't leave. So she abandoned her dignity and nearly kneeled before Ethan. And now, her mother, who originally lived in a regular ward, has been placed in an intensive care unit. The treatment methods she couldn't afford before are all being used now. Where did the money come from? Ethan provided it. So she can resign without hesitation, even without collecting her salary. And the place she's staying now, that address is very familiar to me. It's a property under Ethan's name. What kind of situation is this? Is he secretly keeping a mistress behind my back? What's the point? I'm not someone who can be easily discarded. Besides, with his current ability, if he really wanted to be with someone, who could stop him? I sat in my room from dusk until dark. Finally, I called Ethan. Ethan, we need to talk. Emily, what's wrong? I'm busy right now, can we talk later? I interrupted him. Ethan, forget it, we're breaking up. There's nothing to discuss. Are we going to argue about who is right or wrong? Or nitpick about who has let whom down? That seems pointless. After saying this, I hung up without waiting for Ethan's response. But half an hour later, Ethan appeared at my front door. His face was pale, his eyes were red, and he looked incredibly haggard. Even his normally neat clothes were a bit disheveled. He spoke with a trembling voice, we're not breaking up. My heart ached a bit. Ethan, I know about your situation with Sophia. Are you supporting her? Don't do this, it's an insult to her and to me. Ethan hurriedly shook his head. It's not what you think. I'm not supporting her, I just want her mother to get better quickly so that she can leave. Whether she leaves or not, where she is, what does it have to do with you? If you don't care about her. To be honest, my voice trembled as well. We were both suppressing our emotions, not wanting the situation to become too awkward. Ethan, let's just leave it at that. I really don't like the current situation. So I hadn't finished speaking when Ethan suddenly stepped forward and covered my mouth. His action was gentle. He looked at me pleadingly. Don't say it, Emily, please, don't say it. Ethan was crying. He murmured, can you give me a little time? I'm not okay. I'm really not okay. Emily, wait for me. Ethan said he was already seeing a psychologist. He said he has sexual aversion. He had been avoiding it for a long time. But with Sophia reappearing, he had to confront his own helplessness. Speaking these words seemed to take all his strength. He lowered his head, his face ashen. This was an Ethan I had never seen before. It made my heart ache. I walked over to hug him, gently patting his back. Ethan bowed his head and buried his face in my neck. Why did it end up like this? Is it because of Sophia? Ethan softly murmured, Then he began to tell me about the unknown aspects of his relationship with Sophia. Ethan spoke in a disorganized manner. He said the breakup wasn't because of his mother, it was initiated by Sophia. The trigger for the breakup was when Ethan discovered Sophia was using medication on herself. They had lived together after dating for half a year. Ethan insisted on it. Sophia didn't refuse. However, they had always slept in separate rooms because Sophia was very resistant. Even without going all the way, she was tense during hugs and kisses. At first, Ethan thought she was just shy and couldn't let go. But over time, he noticed something was wrong. Later, he questioned Sophia, do you even love me? Ethan pulled at the corners of his mouth. Actually, I was just saying that out of anger. At that time, I really thought we loved each other. But because of that one sentence, she used medication that night. Nothing happened, and Ethan took Sophia to the hospital. He asked her why she did that. Sophia responded, Ethan, just let me go. Emily, she doesn't love me, or rather, she never loved me. What was even more embarrassing was that the only reason Sophia was with him was to seek his protection. There was no love, only exploitation. I thought the beautiful moments I had with her were all torturous and even disgusting for her. Ethan realized this long afterward. For example, Sophia had thrown up and cried after kissing him more than once. It was too humiliating. So when he saw Sophia again, Ethan was filled with anger and shame. I'm afraid of her, afraid to see her. I'm even more afraid that she'll bring up those unpleasant memories in front of you, so I acted first. How pathetic. He felt as if he had been stripped naked and was standing in front of a large crowd. For the first time, the usually composed Ethan was furious out of embarrassment. He used the harshest words and the loudest voice to suppress Sophia, thinking that this way he would win. But the truth is, he lost completely. He never truly moved on from his past shadows. Ethan's face was pale, and I held his slightly trembling hand, feeling a pang in my heart. In our circle, Ethan was very fortunate. His parents were in love, and his family was happy. They protected him well. He was sunny, warm, confident, and carefree. He poured 100% of his love into his first love, but what he received in return was a heavy blow. I knew there were many things he hadn't said in detail, but those didn't matter anymore. It's okay, it's not a big deal. I'm here, I'll stay with you. Ethan held me tightly. He said in a hoarse voice, I'm getting treatment, I'll be fine. I can get through this, just wait for me, Emily, wait for me. My eyes felt a bit warm. Do you have Sophia's contact information? I asked him. Ethan nodded. I'll contact her from now on. I'll handle her situation. Where she is and what she wants to do have nothing to do with you, okay? Okay. I cradled his face. Ethan, I'm here for you, and I'll always be with you. We have a long time ahead, so take it slow, there's nothing to fear. Ethan didn't leave, he stayed overnight at my place. Perhaps due to the intense emotional turmoil, he quickly fell asleep. I lay beside him, unable to fall asleep for a long time. I sent Sophia a message, "Do you have time tomorrow? We need to talk." Sophia replied, "Okay." Before leaving in the morning, I told Ethan I was going to meet Sophia. Ethan's face tightened for a moment, then slowly relaxed. "It's your decision." I sighed softly. Opening up to someone is difficult. To lay your heart bare, bloodied and exposed before another person, you never know if they will cherish it or disdain it. Betting your heart's pain for a sliver of sympathy from someone else has too low of a success rate, just like Ethan right now. He laid his heart bare, so he was battered and bruised, losing his protective layer. He was now fragile in front of me. I had to slowly help him warm back up. But did I have the ability to do that? I thought about it all night last night. I didn't know if I did, but I had to. I adjusted Ethan's tie. "Come over after work and cook for me. I want a bouquet of flowers. You haven't given me flowers in a long time." Ethan smiled faintly. "Okay." Ethan dropped me off at the hospital and then left. Sophia was waiting for me at the pavilion in front of the inpatient department. We sat facing each other, yet neither spoke. If Sophia had shown any signs of resistance, I could have easily suppressed her. But Sophia seemed too heavy, not in a stable way, but in a lifeless, weighed down manner. I felt this when I saw her at the birthday party last time. It was as if she had been worn down by life to the point of having no strength to fight back. Yet she was only 28. Eventually, she was the one to break the silence. She said, "I'm sorry." "Are you apologizing to him or to me?" I asked. She replied, "To you. When I first saw you, I knew you liked Ethan, but I needed him too much at that time. I'm sorry for delaying you both for so long. As a form of compensation, I will tell you anything you want to know." So I asked her, "Why?" Sophia's eyes were like a pool of stagnant water. She said, "I was too poor. I couldn't afford to eat more, I just needed to get by. My clothes were worn until they turned white, as long as they weren't torn, it was fine. I couldn't afford to socialize, it cost too much. Even the shared water and electricity bills in the dorm made me feel distressed. I was an outsider, whether in the dorm or the classroom. It was okay. But for some reason, she caught the attention of that group of people. They placed bets on how often she took a shower. They barged into the bathroom with their phones to take pictures of her. Sophia was terrified and knocked their phones away. That wasn't even a form of resistance. But it provoked those people. What followed was relentless bullying. Sophia didn't go into detail about how she was bullied. She just said that after a series of humiliations, she was prepared to commit suicide. It was Ethan who stopped her. He easily helped Sophia solve all her problems. He protected her. This kind of beginning would be called redemption in a romance novel. But there was no love in Sophia's world. Later, Ethan started pursuing me. To others, it seemed loud and romantic, but to me, it was only fear, reciprocating kindness with love. I slowly uttered those 4 words. I asked her, "Is that your definition of Ethan's actions?" Sophia looked at me in surprise. Then I thought of something. "You've said this to Ethan before, haven't you?" Sophia fell silent. I felt a heavy weight in my heart. "Then why didn't you reject him?" This was less of a question and more of an accusation. Sophia licked her dry lips. "I was scared. I was afraid of Ethan, and even more afraid of the attention that came with him. If I rejected him, would he retaliate against me? Even if he didn't, would the people behind him retaliate against me? Even if they wouldn't, what about those who bullied me in the past?" I was really too scared. I just wanted to graduate. Study, graduate, work, earn money. I wanted to live a humble, low-profile life. What Ethan gave me, I didn't want at all. After a long silence, I stood up. "I will make new arrangements for your accommodation, and I will take full responsibility for your mother's treatment. This is my compensation to you on behalf of Ethan. At the same time, from now on, you need to avoid Ethan and not appear in front of him for any reason. This is your compensation to him." The only thing I wanted to know from Sophia was the reason. As for other details, if Ethan was willing to tell me, I would listen. If he wasn't, then it would just be a thing of the past. As I turned to leave, Sophia called out to me from behind. Emily, thank you. And I'm sorry. I didn't tell Ethan about my conversation with Sophia. He didn't ask either. He bought me a bouquet of yellow roses and some of my favorite dishes. While he was busy in the kitchen, I was outside arranging the flowers. I didn't know how to arrange flowers, and my sense of aesthetics was average. After fussing with them for a while, they ended up looking a bit off. I asked Ethan, "Do they look good?" Ethan nodded, "They look good." I was quite satisfied. At the dining table, I mentioned Lucas to Ethan. The case in Germany has given him a taste of success. He has already started interfering with and taking over my other projects. My assistant called me during the day. I only said 3 words, "Let him be." Ethan nodded. His debts are piling up. I will have someone remind him of what he should do in due time. In these 3 years, I had worked day and night, so everyone thought I was trying to steal Lucas's credit. That was also what I wanted others to think. And Ethan unconditionally supported my decision. I asked him, "Don't you think I'm being impulsive?" Ethan raised an eyebrow at me. "If it's impulsive, then so be it. I can afford you." That sounded quite domineering, but it was heartwarming to hear. "Anyway, you're free lately. Want to come to my company?" "What would I do there?" "Just have fun." After dinner, he stayed with me for a while to read, then got up to leave as dusk settled. I didn't try to keep him, but as I watched him walk into the lonely night, I couldn't help but ask, "Want to stay over? I'll give you the best guest room." Ethan paused. "Sure." The next day, I followed Ethan to his company. I thought he was joking when he said to come and have fun. Instead, he split his desk in half for me, handed me a notebook to pass the time, and had his assistant buy me a bunch of snacks and fruits. Feeling the curious and gossiping gazes from those passing by, I felt a bit embarrassed. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed indifferent. From time to time, he leaned over and asked me to feed him a bite of food. After lunch, he said to me, "I have a dinner meeting in the afternoon. Should I have the driver take you back?" I nodded in agreement. But just as I was getting into the car, he pulled me back. His lips were tight, and his expression was hesitant. "What's wrong?" He slowly shook his head. "It's nothing. Just wanted to let you know that I won't be coming over tonight." Okay, that night, I had a bit of insomnia. I knew Ethan wasn't telling me the truth. I could see the indecision on his face clearly. This afternoon, he probably wasn't going to a dinner meeting, it was likely to see a therapist. I didn't pay much attention to that. What I cared about was, besides what I currently knew, what else Sophia had done to Ethan. Looking out the window, the twinkling lights under the big tree caught my attention. Someone was smoking. As I focused, I realized it was Ethan. My heart skipped a beat, and I grabbed a shawl and went outside. Ethan seemed lost in thought. It wasn't until I stood in front of him that he noticed. He hurriedly extinguished the cigarette and waved it away. "What are you doing out here?" he asked, his voice a bit hoarse. I felt a little upset. "How long have you been here? Why didn't you call me?" He said, "I just stood here for a while, didn't mean to disturb you." I tugged at the hem of his shirt, it felt cold, definitely not just for a moment. I grabbed his hand and turned to leave. "Come back home with me." Ethan hesitated for a moment, then his hand softened. Once we got home, I noticed under the light that Ethan's face was unusually pale. I checked his forehead. Ethan smiled and said, "I'm fine." But my expression darkened. "You have a fever." I didn't know if it was from being cold downstairs or another reason. Sick Ethan was very obedient. I told him to take a shower, and he went. I told him to drink hot water, and he did. I told him to tuck himself in and lie down obediently, and he poked his head out, wide-eyed, looking at me. "All right, sleep well, have a good rest, and you'll be fine tomorrow." But as I got up to leave, he grabbed my hand. "What's wrong?" Ethan's lips moved, but he didn't say a word for a long time. I said, "Wait for me a moment." I turned off the main lights and dimmed the bedside lamp. In the soft light, I sat on the edge of the bed with a cushion. "Do you want to hold hands?" Ethan didn't speak but reached out his hand to intertwine his fingers with mine. I squeezed his fingertip. "Don't be afraid, I'm here, I'll protect you." Ethan tightened his grip on my hand. "I've always felt that you live the most transparently among us. It seems like you understand everything, you know everything. So every time something happens, I just create a situation and wait for you to give me an opinion or suggestion." I looked at him in surprise. "You did that on purpose?" Ethan nodded. "Who can point out that group of jokers and onlookers? It was really like this. I once thought Ethan was just a big fool who spilled everything. Now it seems I was hooked. Then you should have discovered I liked you a long time ago." I don't know if it was the lighting, but I felt Ethan's gaze was particularly soft. He said, "At first, I didn't realize it, but later I noticed that you always acted indifferent when others were in trouble, and that's when I sensed it." I clicked my tongue. How embarrassing. Ethan brushed my hand with his thumb. "Was it a gesture of comfort?" I asked him. "Did you help me then as a way to repay my feelings?" Ethan paused for a moment. "I was in a really bad state at that time, quite miserable, even a bit self-destructive. Later, I heard about you and didn't think too much. I just felt that I had to help you in any way I could." I looked at him. "So when did you start liking me?" Suddenly, I realized something. "You do like me, right?" "I do," Ethan replied a bit eagerly. There wasn't much drama between Ethan and me. But one can definitely sense another's feelings. Moreover, Ethan has always kept his word. When he said he wanted to develop feelings with me, he truly meant it. "So when exactly did you start liking me?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I don't remember the exact moment, just that when I realized I liked you, it was already a strong feeling." Ethan had never said sweet words to me before. It was the first time, and it truly touched my heart. "So, I'm very afraid of losing you." Ethan's voice lowered. "None of it was meant to deceive you, I just didn't know how to start." "It's okay." I softened my tone. "I've long since moved past the black and white judgment of the world. I allow the existence of gray areas. I accept lies, as long as those lies aren't meant to hurt me. You see, when I first mentioned breaking up with you, I was so angry that I could have died, but as soon as you explained, didn't I just hold you?" "I'm sorry." Ethan's eyes were full of guilt. "I forgive you," I said. Now Ethan finally opened up. He said, "I didn't go to socialize this afternoon, I went to see a therapist. It wasn't good, I threw up and had to sit in the car shaking for a long time before I could start it. It was really embarrassing, I didn't want you to see. But lying to you made me feel worse." Ethan then told me about the more secretive matters between him and Sophia. He mentioned how Sophia had drugged herself. But that was when their relationship was approaching its end. They had been together for 2 years, so it couldn't have happened just once. I had realized that problem from the start. But what I didn't expect was that aside from the last time, all the other drugs Sophia used were for Ethan. Amitriptyline, an antidepressant, had the side effect of lowering libido. Ethan, foolishly immersed in love. If Sophia hadn't confessed in the end, he would never have discovered it. The reason Sophia confessed was that Ethan refused to break up. Even after Sophia said she had never loved him, Ethan still didn't believe it. He even suspected that someone was sabotaging their relationship. Sophia was driven to desperation. She knelt before Ethan and begged him. She showed him her arms, which were already scarred. "Look, these are all my own cuts. I can't accept your kisses or hugs. But I have to endure it, I keep enduring, but when I can't take it anymore, I just cut myself. There's nowhere left to cut, Ethan, if I keep going, I will die." Her words and her wounds tortured Ethan one cut at a time. Ethan broke down. It was too painful. He was filled with a rage inside because of that damn past. And Sophia. I had always felt indifferent towards her, but at that moment, I felt a strong dislike and hatred. How dare she mistreat Ethan like this? She pulled my bright youth into the abyss, and that wasn't enough. She kept throwing stones down to crush him. She really deserved to die. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked. Coming back to my senses, I realized I had rubbed Ethan's hand raw. "Does it hurt?" I asked. Ethan shook his head. It doesn't hurt. I hurt. My heart hurt, my head hurt, my eyes hurt. Suddenly, Ethan hugged me. His strength was a bit overwhelming, squeezing me too tightly. I didn't say anything. I just raised my hand and gently patted his back. Ethan suggested that I accompany him to see the therapist. The first time, I waited for him downstairs. When he came out, he looked very unwell. His face was pale, lacking any color, and his hands trembled slightly. The second time, I went upstairs with him. This time wasn't much better than the first. Ethan visibly lost weight. His entire state was sinking. Though he pretended to be casual, I was very worried but didn't know how to help. The third time, the therapist asked to talk to me. I looked at Ethan. Ethan nodded. The therapist analyzed Ethan's current problems with me. He's too anxious, anything done in haste will not succeed. He told me, Mr. Ethan's issue isn't severe, he's just been suppressing his feelings for too long, which is why his initial reaction is a bit exaggerated. Gradually, he'll be able to come out of it. As his partner, I need to give him time and a relaxed environment. First of all, I shouldn't view this as a problem. After dinner, Ethan went to his study to handle some business. I knocked on the door, holding a plate of fruit. Ethan looked up and smiled at me. I reached out my hand toward him. Ethan looked at me in confusion but still placed his hand in mine. I quickly shook it off. I don't want that, I want my engagement ring. Ethan froze in place. What? Are you not going to give it to me? Ethan stood up a bit anxiously. No, I was planning to wait for a while until I felt better and find the right moment. Hurry up. I urged him. Ethan looked at me with a complicated expression. In the end, he reluctantly took out the ring box. He actually brought it with him. I held the ring in my hand and slipped it onto my middle finger. It was neither too big nor too small, it fit perfectly. I waved my hand at him and said, "Gotcha." The next day, when we went out, Ethan took my hand, and my ring clinked against something. Looking down, I saw that Ethan was also wearing a ring on his middle finger. He said, "Gotcha." 12. Afterward. Lucas is a fool. After he continuously lost several partnerships, the board finally realized something was wrong. Meanwhile, his relationship with the German side had completely fallen apart. They even declared that they would never cooperate with the Alex family again, so they began to search for the reason. It turns out that looking into it was quite shocking. All the projects Lucas handled were underpriced. The contracts were a mess, resembling coercive clauses. Those without any real power who wanted to ride on the coattails of the Alex family had no choice but to agree. But most others just thought Lucas had gone crazy, and the Alex family was insane. Did they really think that in this market, the Alex family could have the final say? They terminated contracts and filed lawsuits. The board was bewildered. Lucas single-handedly made everyone work for nothing for a year. What on earth was he trying to do? Lucas faced family punishment and finally spoke the truth. He said he had no choice because he was burdened with billions in debt. Moreover, the company found that he had embezzled funds more than once. This was a matter that could land him in prison. Alex almost had a brain hemorrhage. He couldn't allow his only son to go to jail. He could only fill the hole with money. He called me to come back and clean up the mess. His presumptive tone even made me laugh. My response was quite straightforward. I'm not going. So Alex began to talk to me about feelings. Previously, Dad was wrong. I didn't expect Lucas would do something like this. Don't worry, I've already kicked Lucas out of the company. From now on, you'll call the shots. What a righteous stance. Did he really kick Lucas out? It was the entire board that couldn't stand him anymore. Dad, don't say that. Mixing feelings with business costs money. Alex's voice lowered. What do you want? I didn't beat around the bush. I want 3% of the company's shares. Alex thought for an entire afternoon, and soon someone came to me with the share transfer contract. When Ethan returned, I was humming a tune while watering the flowers. He came over, hugged me, and kissed me. So happy? I raised my eyebrows. Of course. Tomorrow I'll receive a big sum of money. indeed, money brings happiness. Ethan chuckled. Have you decided who to sell it to? I nodded. Alex was so willing to give me the shares because he was certain I wouldn't do anything to harm the company's interests. But he ultimately didn't understand me. So I decisively sold the shares for money. This company was destined to change its name. Alex stormed in front of me, furious. Emily, are you crazy? I shrugged innocently. In business, profit comes first. Isn't that what you told me? But this is a company I founded with your mother, you're ruining it. What good does that do you? I laughed. Turns out you know this company was founded by you and my mother. But you cheated on her while married, made her furious, and still supported your mistress's son. If my mother knew, she'd come back to life just to strangle you. Alex wasn't a fool, he quickly caught on. Did you have a hand in Lucas's issues? I didn't deny it. Alex's eyes widened. You're destroying him like this. Emily, how can you do such a despicable and shameless thing? Despicable and shameless? So what? I stared at him coldly. You might not understand me, my bottom line in business is not morality, but the law. Sophia's mother couldn't be cured. She decided to take her mother back to her hometown. Before leaving, she asked to meet me, and I went. She said, "Can you give me a bank account number? I will slowly pay you back." I shook my head. No need. Sophia insisted, it wouldn't be right to owe you, otherwise, I'd find it hard to live the rest of my life in peace. Then just consider it that I'm buying you a lifetime of not seeing Ethan. Sophia slightly lowered her head. Don't worry, I will keep my promise. But that money? I felt a bit of a headache. How long do you plan to repay this money? A lifetime? A little every month or a little every year? This money doesn't mean much to me. Whether you repay it or not makes no difference to me. I'm serious about buying you a lifetime of not seeing Ethan. It's not a polite expression or a way to preserve your dignity. Sophia's face turned a bit pale, and she nervously picked at her hands. I'm sorry. I sighed. We won't be friends. We won't have any ongoing relationship in the future. You have your helplessness, your tragic experiences. But I'm selfish and protective. I will prioritize Ethan above all. I only came today to tell you once more, don't show up in front of Ethan again. I could never do something like let bygones be bygones. A grudge is a grudge, and it can't be erased. That night, I told Ethan about Sophia leaving. He just replied with an not really caring much. I couldn't help but scrutinize him. Ethan immediately noticed. He humorously hugged me. I'm fine. I reached out to touch his head. Good job. Ethan was both amused and helpless. I heard he was planning the proposal again. A friend from the club let me know. Honestly, having too many friends isn't always a good thing. They're all big mouths. I scolded them, and seriously warned, from now on, make sure to inform me of such things promptly. Later, Ethan told me that he wanted me for the rest of his life. I thought it was amazing.